You guys might all be sitting there wondering, what is groundwater? Well, groundwater is simply the water in the zone of saturation below the water table. In this location, the rock is 100% saturated, so it will not accept any more water. For this diagram, the ground below the water table, the blue area, is saturated with water. The unsaturated zone above the water table, the greenish area, still contains water, but is not totally saturated with water. The two drawings at the bottom of the diagram show a close-up of how water is stored in between underground rock particles. Where does it come from? Groundwater comes from rain, snow, sleet, and hail that soak into the ground. The water moves down into the ground because of gravity passing between particles of soil, sand, gravel, or rock until it reaches a depth where the ground is filled or saturated with water. Why is it important? Groundwater is very important for two main reasons. Firstly, groundwater is a major source of fresh water for humans. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, 50% of people living in the US use groundwater as their main source of fresh water. Secondly, groundwater supports rivers, lakes, and wetlands, especially through drier months when there is little direct input from rainfall. The flow of groundwater into rivers as seepage through the riverbed, known as base flow, can be essential to the health of wildlife and plants that live in the water. This picture exemplifies porosity. Porosity is simply the ability for an object to absorb moisture into empty spaces in its structure. An example of something that is very porous would be a sponge. It has a lot of open space for moisture, which is water in most cases, to enter. The more open spaces an object has, the more porous it is. You'll be surprised to note the connection between porosity and groundwater landscapes. The porosity of rocks in the groundwater greatly affect how groundwater landscapes form. If the rocks in the landscape are very porous, then the rocks will be able to hold a large supply of water. If the rocks are not porous, then the water will hardly be absorbed and seek a more porous rock. The road is an example of a porous object, as the water being poured by the man is being absorbed into the rocks. The cup is an example of a non-porous object, as it does not absorb water. Now your curious minds might be wondering, what is permeability? Permeability refers to how fast water can pass through rock layers. If a rock is permeable, then water is able to quickly flow through it, while if a rock is impermeable, then the water is unable to flow through it. For example, in this picture, it's an example of a permeable rock. It's evident because the water is quickly able to flow through the rock. A rain jacket is a great example of an impermeable object, as it does not allow any water to get through. These have many applications. If the rocks are not permeable, then water will hardly be able to flow through the rock, and this will create an impermeable layer that will not allow water through. Since the water cannot flow through these layers, the water begins to build up in the porous rocks above, forming what is known as a zone of saturation. This is where ordinary wells tend to get their water from. The permeability of rocks is very important in the formation of groundwater landscapes, as depending on the permeability of rocks in each area, different layers and formations will occur. The impermeable layer in this picture, obsidian, known as bedrock, is what blocks the water and allows a saturated zone to occur, which can later be tapped by a well, evident right here. Now let's take a 10-second break. We'll be right back. An aquifer might have been something you've never heard of. An aquifer is a rock layer that can store a substantial amount of water. Sometimes the aquifer is pressured, and so when a well is drilled, the water rises to the surface. This type of well is called an artesian well. The permeable rock, such as sandstone, is sandwiched between two impermeable layers, which puts the water under pressure. The area where the water is supplied to the aquifer is called a hydraulic head. The higher the hydraulic head, the greater the liquid or the hydrostatic builds of pressure in the aquifer. The impermeable rock cannot be polluted by local sources from above that can be contaminated from the location where the water is supplied to the system. For those of you who have seen The Walking Dead, you recall a zombie being in a well. That's another type of well, an ordinary well. These wells are not pressurized because often aquifers have a layer of impermeable rock over them, which liquids can just infiltrate from the surface. Unfortunately, pollutants from above can seep down along with the water, which can contaminate the well with local sources, as seen by the zombie right in the dead center of the picture. Now, what are wells used for, or aquifers in general? People tap into aquifers by drilling wells. We can use this for clean drinking water and irrigation. Now, your curious minds might be wondering what type of landforms are created by groundwater. As groundwater flows through the landscape, it weathers the land, creating some amazing landforms. Hot springs, geysers, terracotta terraces, caves, caverns, and sinkholes are all created by groundwater. Hot springs and geysers are surrounded by layers of mineral deposits created when warmer, mineral-rich groundwater come to the surface and cool, depositing its minerals. These deposits form a rock layer called the travertine and referred to as travertine terraces, as evident in this picture. Limestone rock dissolves 100% in water. Because of this, as water moves through the rock, huge caves or caverns are created. Often there won't be any evidence of these caves on the surface, and this picture shows water passing through limestone and showing a massive cavern being created. As caverns increase in size, overlying support is eventually lost, and the ground collapses to form a depression called a sinkhole. The ground often does not stabilize and so will collapse again years later. For example, in this picture, the Toyota just completely sinks down with the sinkhole as its support is lost. Now, your curious minds might be wondering, what is karst? Karst is a distinctive topography in which the landscape is largely shaped by the dissolving action of water on carbonate bedrock, usually limestone, dolomite, or marble. This geological process, occurring over many thousands of years, results in unusual surface and subsurface features, ranging from sinkholes, vertical shafts, disappearing streams, and springs to complex underground drainage systems and caves, as shown in this picture. This is a vertical shaft and also a karst. The process of karst formation revolves what is referred to as the carbon dioxide cascade. As rain falls through the atmosphere, it picks up CO2, which dissolves in the droplets. Once the rain hits the ground, it percolates through the soil and picks up more CO2 to form a weak solution of carbonic acid. The infiltrating water naturally exploits any cracks or crevices in the rock, as evident right here in the picture. Over long periods, with a continuous supply of CO2, enriched water, carbonate bedrock begins to dissolve. Openings in the bedrock increase in size and an underground drainage system begins to develop, allowing more water to pass, further accelerating the formation of karst, as evident as the disappearing stream and then the spring being created. Eventually, this leads to a development of subsurface caves also, which is located right here. Now I'm going to show you a quick video to recap everything we've learned so far. I'd like you to pay attention to the groundwater shortage viewed in this video.
Hey, what happened to my water?
There's something here that you should know. The story of water from down below.
Oh, I'm groundwater, I'm all around. Most of your water is underground. The water we have is all the same. I'm used over and over again. I surrounded the castle with a watery moat, and I float along under Huck Finn's boat. I once dripped down as dinosaur drool, and now I'm the cool that fills your swimming pool.
Feel the drops of snow and rain, an age-old cycle again and again. Groundwater under the ground, groundwater flowing down in the ground. Groundwater all around, groundwater, don't you know why we should care? The water we use is everywhere.
Riding along the aquifers, deep down under where no one stirs. I feed the lakes, streams and land. I'm pulled by wells, I'm in demand. Flowing along a great bear of treasure, slipping through space too small to measure. I may start off with an oily sheen, but the dirty rocks help keep me clean.
Swallow and swim, shave and spray. We all use water every day. Some for fishes, some for dishes. But is there enough for everyone's wishes? Use it. Groundwater, don't abuse it. Groundwater, we use our groundwater every day. Let's make sure it's here to stay.
Oh, rainy days, I must lament. The troubles I have with tar and cement. I can't feel the ground if I can't get through. I'm groundwater, my power is vast, but waste and pollution keep me from my task. If we're not careful, clean water won't last.
That's some help. We can't carry on. What would we do if the water is gone? Every time you brush your teeth, remember the water underneath. Next time, wait, stop, and think before you dump stuff down the sink. Do your part for water power. Learn to take a shorter shower. Stuff that makes your grass look swell will end up later in your well. Protect groundwater, conserve groundwater as we plan to build and grow. Leave open space for water to flow. Be aware, groundwater, show you care. Groundwater, now you are in the know. Don't forget the water down below. Don't forget the water down below. Don't forget the water down below.
Now, just a quick overview of a problem found in the video and a real-world example. Excessive pumping of groundwater can result in a lowering of the water table. In severe cases, where pumping demand is high and aquifer recharge is slow, the water table can drop so low that it's below the depth of a well. When that happens, the well runs dry, and no water can be removed until the groundwater is recharged, which in some cases can take hundreds or thousands of years. For example, the Ogallala Aquifer, a vast 174,000 square mile groundwater reserve, lies beneath the Great Plains, stretching from South Dakota to Texas. The Ogla supplies almost 1/3 of America's agriculture groundwater, but by 2010, about 30% of the aquifer's groundwater had been tapped. Parts of the Ogallala Aquifer are now dry, and the water table has declined more than 300 feet in other areas. According to the Texas Water Development Board, not only do these groundwater losses have serious implications for agriculture production and the regional economy, they may also have significant and immediate effect on the more than 1.8 million people who rely on the Ogallala Aquifer for their drinking water. And that's all. Brought to you by Hunter, Jacob, and Prabhnoor. Bye!